Another episode of Spectrum Uncensored. Today I have with me Mel from Western Sydney. Thank you for your time today.
So welcome. Happy to
Uh,
be here.
Would you like to tell me a little bit about yourself, what you were diagnosed with and when you were diagnosed?
Sure. So I was diagnosed with BPD, borderline personality disorder, when I was 28. I was 28, so it was a very late diagnosis. And it sort of came about when I moved in with my partner and I realized that my attachment style and emotional regulation were definitely not normal. So like talking through therapy brought up a lot of sort of like, childhood trauma and, kind of conditioning from my parents about the way you should be, and realizing that I was sort of always kind of regulating other people and never regulating myself. So, yeah, that came about. I also have generalized anxiety disorder, but I feel like everyone has that. Like, yeah, like let's just chuck it in.
Especially if you're
Um,
neurodivergent.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I am medicated for the anxiety disorder. I'm on mood stabilizers, which has honestly like saved my life. And, I'm one of those people that like I'll never yuck somebody's yum. That's like my words to live and die by.
Love
Like
that.
medication's great for me, but I know it's not for everybody. Um, it helps me to it helps me to remain on an even keel and help a little bit more with my regulation, which, sometimes it's an ebb and flow. Like it really is. Like sometimes it's like, I'm fine and, I'm regulated and I'm just, being normal. And then some days it's like the smallest thing, it will just like set me off. And then I'm like, oh no, she's spiraling. I'm also painfully self aware, which
Yep.
sucks because like I, as much as I can, I try to, be self-aware and I don't know my triggers and I know my coping strategies and my coping mechanisms. But, there's still sometimes where you're in the midst of a spiral where it just all goes out the window and like there's nothing that's gonna help you. Yeah.
It's a lot, and I think like when I before I was diagnosed, I was diagnosed autistic and ADHD, and my husband for the longest time was like, I think you might have borderline personality disorder, and so I went to my psychologist and I'm like, do I have that? And she's like, no, but often borderline personality disorder is misdiagnosed. Like they give you that, but you
Yeah.
actually have autism.
Yeah, well,
So
this is actually something that I've really been thinking about since, like the birth of my son and also living with my neurodiverse partner. I'm like, maybe it's not BPD, maybe like because, and like because my background is in education, I know that girls mask so well. They mask so well and all this stuff goes under the radar and gets misdiagnosed. So I'm wondering if I was in that bracket who did get mixed. It wouldn't surprise me.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah,
it's a funny one. It's a funny one. Like there were things in my childhood that like so I had asthma
yep,
and it wasn't until like a few years ago, I'm 36 now, that I realized like I wasn't having asthma attacks, I was having panic attacks.
yeah.
And just the fact that people weren't aware that that was what was happening, like they didn't really know what a panic attack looked like in that space. And so it was like, oh, you've got your asthma, that's an asthma attack. It was like, nah, it's a panic attack because like when I think about the things that were happening around me at the time, I'm like, I wasn't doing anything that would trigger an asthma attack. It was all
Yeah.
like emotional stuff. So, yeah, it's been something really interesting to sort of reflect on now that I'm more stable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know what you mean because I have panic attacks, and it tightens your chest, and you feel like you're
Yeah.
gasping for air. So it does kind of mimic an asthma attack,
Absolutely.
but it's
Absolutely. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah, and that's hard. And we're our own worst enemies because
Yeah.
we, as you say, we mask so well. So then you have people invalidating you when you get
Yeah.
diagnosed because they're like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. It's like, yeah, because I'm like really good at acting.
Yeah, absolutely
Like
right. Absolutely
I
right.
deserve all the awards, but
Oh, I
yeah,
realize like something that I do like when I'm at work and I'll walk past somebody and I'll be like, oh, hi, how are you? And then my face just like drops the minute they're out of my view. And I'm like, Whoa, that's intense. Like, that's an
Yeah.
intense thing to be able to do and recognize that you're doing as well.
Yeah, and it just I think people when people actually realize that that's what you do, it's just like they think you're psycho,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you can literally just adapt and take on
yeah,
different personalities to suit the different
yeah.
situations, and I guess that is why often that borderline personality disorder kind of comes into the mix, because there's so many overlaps with autism
So
traits.
many.
So especially in women, it's
Yeah.
usually women that have that high rate of misdiagnosis with
Oh,
those
yeah,
two things. So,
yeah,
and even like bipolar,
yeah.
that gets thrown in there too. And when my husband was being diagnosed, he's autistic ADD, and for the longest time they were like, is it ADHD, is it ADD, is it bipolar? And so he went from being ADHD to bipolar to
Mm,
ADD.
mm,
So
mm.
because he went on bipolar medications and stuff and they didn't do anything.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, I was just like, I don't think that's what it is. Like,
yeah,
you're reading up and doing all that research trying to work out um,
yeah.
what it could possibly be, but trying not to rely on Dr. Google too much because that's a bit of a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh man.
So you were saying like your child, you've got it's a son, your son, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dante, my little
Yep.
3.5 year
Love
old.
that name.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell me a little bit about Dante.
Oh, I could go all day.
I know.
So yeah, Dante is our little. Oh my gosh, he's just my whole world, and he's he's certainly unique,
Yep.
in that way that I guess all parents think their kids are unique, but it's with a couple of extra herbs and spices in the mix. So he like, and that's the thing that people always say to me is like, no, speak about him, like speak to him, don't speak about like what's wrong with him.
Yep.
So Dante is like, he's so playful and social and cheerful. He's just such a cheery kid. Loves a plush toy. Cannot see him in the morning in his bed because of all the plush toys, which is pretty much my fault because I love a plush. And so
Yep.
now it's just kind of all gone on to him. He's really playful. He'll turn anything into a game. He likes doing those repetitive things. So like my sister, to get to her house, has like a footpath that he calls a bridge, and it'll be 20 minutes before we're in the door. It's like we got here 20 minutes ago, but he just wants to go across the bridge and go across the bridge. um he just likes doing things his own way, even at this age. I've sort of recognizing it's like, yeah, man, you do you. Like, you don't have to play with that toy how you're supposed to. The Thomas the
Yeah.
Tank Engine trains can absolutely live in the Bluey house,
Why not?
like that's fine. He does get very fixated on things, like, so he'll go through this ebb and flow of like favorite thing of the month, which
Yep.
I guess is quite normal for children, but trains have always been the constant. And we joke, like, dark humor alert for me. That's how I cope. But
I'm the
I
same.
basically said to my fiance, I was like, we don't need to diagnose him. Look at him lining up the trains. Like,
Yeah.
he knows the 4 different blue trains by name. Like,
That's part of the DSM-5 criteria.
I don't need a diagnosis. Um, yeah, so like stuff like that, and we were always sort of with Dante expecting it to come,
Yep.
because Dean is ADHD autistic, and there's too much spice going on with us for us to have like a neurotypical child, and so we're just kind of waiting until um a time where we actually had, like, is it just an in your own time thing, or is this a development delay sort of thing? And like I said, having my background as like a primary educator has been really, really valuable, because I I know, like, when, like, oh, maybe we should start looking on how we can support you because you're not neurotypical, and what we're going to do to support a neurotypical child is not what you need.
Yep.
Um yeah, which
And that's definitely a benefit.
I think it's the best advice you can give anybody. That, a lot of parents feel funny about when their kids have a label. A lot of parents don't want their children diagnosed because they don't want them set apart and different. And I get that, I really do, because you want to be like, no, this is just Dante, this is just him, like, he's Dante, he's not autistic. um but unfortunately, like, we just live in a society where those pieces of paper mean a lot, and they unlock access to a lot of things that you need to support your neurodiverse child
And survive, because
and to
it's,
survive.
yeah, like that's right. Like, I get the whole label thing and the whole, I don't want my kid like segregated or whatever, but
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is they already are, and they're
Yeah.
more so when they're not diagnosed, because people
1000%.
just push them to the side like that's
Yeah.
strange. But once you have a like, you shouldn't have to justify who you are or anything like that, or
Yeah.
have a reason per se. But once you have that whole piece of paper thing, it's like, no,
Yeah.
this is why I am the way I am. And all of a sudden it's more validating, because
Yeah.
they're disabilities that you can't necessarily see. So
Yeah.
it's the same for mental health. People are always like, oh, but that
Absolutely.
person was so happy. Why did that happen? It's like, yeah, but it's,
Yeah.
mental health is masking too. So
Yeah,
it's,
absolutely.
yeah, it's
And again,
really,
like, the education perspective, I know that, like, if you do not have a formally diagnosed child, there are limits as to what teachers and educators can do. Like, there is an allocation of funding for children with diagnoses. So, as much as, and look, as a society, I guess that's not for me to say how we operate, but it's certainly not reflective of the needs. But that's just the way it is, unfortunately.
yeah. And I've had this conversation with multiple people multiple times. The whole definition of inclusivity really, it annoys me, because when it comes to schooling and stuff like that, it's thrown around a lot, and it's like, your definition of inclusivity is not the same as mine. The whole, oh, we're inclusive because they can come here, like for mainstream school, it's like, okay, wow, that's great, but that's not inclusivity. That's
That
just like a
bar is
right.
very low.
Yeah, I'm like, if that's as far high as we're aiming, that's, yeah, okay. But
Yeah.
and yeah, I often find that in those kinds of settings, the definition of inclusivity is segregation. And then in the settings where they are very inclusive, it comes across as segregation, but it's not. It's just adapting things. And like, my
Yeah.
son he's been in a mainstream school, now he's in a special school, and people were always like, oh, sending him to a special school, he won't be surrounded by all types of people. He's been surrounded by all types of people now, versus where he is now, surrounded by just a whole bunch of spicy people. He's living his best life. He's like, wow,
Yeah.
there's more people just like me, and he's
Yeah.
nonverbal, so he's finally interacting with other children that are nonverbal too, and it's like,
That's
he
beautiful.
feels normal. Like, that's his
That's the
normal.
thing.
Yeah.
You want a society, and you want the environments to be reflective of their true selves. Like, so this is I'm like the worst person to talk about this, because I'm actually, so, like, I'm in the education sector, but, like, I'm a teacher librarian. I was a
Yep.
classroom teacher for 7 years, and now I'm in the library. And I'm always so determined to have a school library that reflects its users. You should be able to see yourself on the shelf of
Yep.
every library you go into. And it's the same. It's like, you're not the other when you're with your people.
Yeah,
You're not the
exactly.
other. And it's funny, because it's a stereotype, but it is so true. All the neurospices, they flock to me. They flock to the library. They
Yep.
know it's a safe
Moths to a
place.
flame.
Absolutely. And so, like, I've got my neurospices that come in every recess and lunch, and they're just, doing their craft or drawing this, or just, like, just doing whatever. And it's just such a safe space for them to be themselves. And
Yep.
it's, and I'm just thinking back to my childhood. I'm like, oh my God, like, I was in the library a lot, and, like, having these alarm bells go off. And I went to a teacher librarian conference once, and I'm like, look around, I'm like, God, these are a bunch of weirdos. I'm like, oh wait, oh my God, like,
It's
the
me.
penny
Hello, it's me.
drops. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, like, I'll be driving along and I'll see someone walking down the street and I'm like, neurospicy. Like, you just can pick it. And it's funny,
You
like, you
can.
can't pick it like that unless you are neurodivergent
One
yourself.
thousand
Like,
percent.
you've
One
got to,
thousand percent.
yeah, it's like a radar kind of thing. But
Absolutely is.
Yeah, and you're right. Like I'm the same. I especially neurodivergent kids, they're just like a moth to a flame. Like I think just because I'm just such a big kid, like I just don't have that. I don't know if it's the same for you, but I feel like it is for most neurodivergent people. You don't really have that sense of age. Like I know how old I am, but I don't like my body feels older than it is. But like me as a person, I'm just like wait, I'm not still 16. What? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know. Like,
yeah.
it's really hard to make that connection. I don't know if you kind of
Yeah, I
experience the same thing.
experience it too because I mean, I can just tell like we both have very sort of like alternative hair and like alternative look as well, and that's just such
Yeah,
another indicator that
it
like,
is.
ah, there you go.
Yeah, colored hair is
Let's
like part of the starter pack.
let's yeah, yeah, let's go to the girl with the dye hair, the tattoos, and the piercings. Like
Oh yeah,
she'll
yeah,
make us safe. But it's so true. It's like that. And I've actually recently said to my partner that through having Dante and through thinking more about my own neurodiversity and his neurodiversity that I'm actually now at 36 being the person I wish I was when I was 20. Like,
yeah,
I wish that I had the audacity that I have now to look like this and do what I do. Like it's just been something that's really been heartwarming for me to kind of reclaim my lost youth in so many ways because I felt like I had to be an adult before my time.
yep,
And so yeah, now sort of like realizing it's just because I was wired differently to
yep,
kind of revisit that and like what did I say? I said my years of 2024 are like frivolity, whimsy, and like everything like that. Like I just want to have a whimsical year, you know?
But how good does it feel when when you do just let go and just be yourself? Like it's such a hard thing to describe because most people, I mean, neurotypical people just do it like naturally.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for us, like I remember back to my childhood and having to be so careful about what I say and how I say it and how I act and react. And it was
Yeah.
always like, you're too sensitive, you're a
Oh.
hypochondriac,
Oh.
that kind of stuff. And I remember specifically hating being in my skin, like feeling like
Yeah.
I needed to rip
Yes.
my skin off. Like I
Yes.
just, that whole feeling of I can't be, I just don't want to be me. And, um, and yeah, it just,
Yeah.
those labels of, deficit really. It was just that, I had a strong sense of justice and I had sensory issues. So if I got hurt, it really hurt. And, so there was so many layers and having such a
Yeah.
literal mind to someone turning around telling
Yeah.
me I talk too much. So then I'd go, okay, well, I just won't talk at all then. So then it was like, oh, now you're antisocial. Like, come on. Like, what do
I
you want from
know.
me?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, but you're telling me the thing and then I'm doing the thing and now you're saying that wasn't the thing to do. What's the thing to do? Like, tell me the thing to do
Give me
before
a
I put on
list.
my human suit in the morning. Like, yeah. Yes.
Literally. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the thing is it's so dehumanizing because it makes you feel
Oh.
like you are an alien. Like, what are you doing on this planet? Like, where did you come from?
Yeah.
um, and we're all just humans. We're all people. Like, it's
Yeah.
just we spend our entire lives trying to make neurotypical people feel comfortable. So when's it going to be
Yes.
our turn? Like,
Oh, I like making people feel as uncomfortable as I can. Um, I enjoy it. It's something
it's a
that's
pleasure.
like it's a real pleasure and a privilege to be able to do. But like but I'll say things to people now that I would never say. Like if they say something that I, think like, oh, that's not okay, I'll be like, that's an interesting thing to say out loud. Like I just say things like that because I'm not having it. I'm not having it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, I used to have people say, "You can't say that," and I'm like, "But I just did."
I just
What?
did.
I could say things like that as a kid, and I did. It was just like, "Wee!"
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm very
yeah,
careful when I speak to my son like that now because I'll say, "You can't do that," and I'm like, "Wait, you can, but
yeah,
you're not supposed to." I'm like,
yeah,
I'm trying to change my wording so I'm not like passing on childhood trauma to
yeah.
my child, which is
Oh my
another
gosh.
kettle of fish altogether.
Oh my gosh, the breaking of the generational trauma. Oh,
it's difficult, but
it
yeah,
is.
it's I don't know. I find like with my son, he's very very cheeky, and he's doesn't matter like wherever he goes, everybody adores him because he's just got such a personality. And I'm just like, you're welcome. but
Yeah. Yeah.
like he's been around me his entire life, so we know where he got it from.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for a kid that doesn't use words verbally, he is like one bossy kid, and he knows what he wants, and he's just, he's so expressive in his facial
Yeah.
expressions and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So people can read his mind practically when he's about to do something dodgy. He's like, damn it, I can't play poker.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, don't quit your day job, mate. But yeah, it's I mean, he's almost 11, so it's been we've been through quite the journey already.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but I mean, I don't, as you say, like I don't like to talk about deficit because
Yeah.
I find that that's really invalidating. Like,
Mm.
if we didn't have spicy people in the world, like we wouldn't have things like Pokemon or Microsoft or
No,
Apple, or
absolutely.
you wouldn't be able to use your iPhones. Like,
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I'm always like, you owe us so much. Like, start
Oh,
acting like it.
dude. Like, I feel, it's like we walked so everyone else could run, like that's what it's like.
Yeah,
The
literally.
building blocks of society here. Because
Yeah, yeah,
everyone's got like the neurospicy people around them. And I agree with you about the terminology. Like it all just sounds so jarring. Like even the word autism, it's just
yeah,
so jarring.
yeah,
And then like, the fact that it's a disorder. It's like, well, it's not a disorder. It's not. It's just like, some people have blue eyes, some people have brown eyes. Some people, decide when they're 36 they want to dye their hair pink. And
yeah.
that's okay. It's just a difference, that's all.
Yeah, well, it's not like we call say neurotypical as a disorder. Like, what
Not
if we flipped the script? Like,
exactly. It's like this whole thing of like define normal and what is normal and who decided that they were the ones that were normal and we were the ones that were different. Like, is it a majority rules sort of thing?
well,
Like,
in
are
that
we?
case, we're coming for you.
Yeah.
We're taking over the world,
We're
one
the mean
baby at a
girls at
time.
school.
But even like school curriculum, as an example, it's so. I was
Don't get me
talking to my son's
started.
teacher the other day,
Don't get me started.
and I absolutely adore him. He's just amazing, and I could just see his frustration of like, oh, I just, why does it have to be the same for everyone? Like,
Yeah.
and it's individual curriculum plans or individual learning plans, but it's still very much like, no, you need to be on the same level for everything. So it's like, but what if this child is at this level for English, but at this level for math? It's like, why do they have
Yeah.
to be doing, like, I know in high school we didn't do that. We did different levels. Like, I was
Yeah.
in level 1, which was like high for English, but then for science I might be level 2 because I was like in the middle ground. So it just depended purely on like your capabilities. And
Yeah.
so like, why is it not like that in primary school, for example, where
Yeah.
you're teaching where they need to be taught rather than putting all that added pressure of like, you need to be at this level. I
Yeah.
just find that's traumatic in itself, especially if
Oh,
you're neurodivergent.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of those things that I just think it's going to take such a huge societal shift to ever have any sort of meaningful change from it, unfortunately. But you can, especially after lockdown and everything, homeschooling has really gone up. Like people are actually kind of realizing like, oh, you know what? We didn't do too badly. My kid was a lot more settled and we kind of leaned into their interests. This actually we might be onto something here.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, it's hard. It's really hard because again, it's like you can't fit what is it? A square peg in a round box, and that's
Yeah.
what it's doing.
Yeah.
And my brain's
And
just jumped back to what I was saying about autism, the
yeah.
word. So New Zealand has a beautiful word for it. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but it's takiwatanga, in his own time and space.
Bring him over.
Like it's just like, yeah, because that's what it is. It's in their own time and space, and it's just something that's so like affirming and doesn't
Yeah.
sound negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. And it's yeah, there's just so much. Like, you could go, the thing is that we have to fight for so long for so little too. It takes years to like literally just even initiate a baby step. So it's really
Yeah.
frustrating because what comes so easily and readily to the other side of the coin,
Yeah.
it's like we need all neurotypes. Like I don't have anything against neurotypical people.
No.
Like they have their place in the world, but so do
Yeah.
we. So it's just like,
Absolutely.
getting the same respect back and the same kind of, value
Yeah.
and validation.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal, is just so yeah. And it's difficult because, like, I don't like to draw comparisons and stuff, but there's a lot of, you can see a lot of kind of similar fights being made with people that are in all sorts of communities, whether it's
Yeah.
transgender communities
Yeah.
or, like, it's all the same principles. You know what I mean? Like everyone
Well,
just wants to be treated equally, and
do you find that when it comes to like any kind of allyship in whatever form, any kind of minority group, like, whether it's people of color, whether it's
yep,
LGBTQIA, whether it's neurodiverse, we're always allies for each other. It's the people you see showing up when the issue isn't theirs,
yes,
and
yep,
I just find that such a common thing that, like, when you look for these circles of allyship, you'll find the LGBTQI community, you'll find the neurodiverse community, and you will find the people of color community as well.
yep,
Like, it's just
definitely.
sort of like a nice little band
Yeah, it's almost
because,
like, I don't know, it's like we have that empathy for each
yeah,
other, so we automatically go, we want to help. And that's
yeah,
what I mean. Like, we're actually really nice people. And I find that we're less judgmental, and we're more embracing. Like, it's like, okay, you do you kind of thing, because we're so used to people not letting us do that, that it's
yeah.
kind of like gives us that perspective of,
Yeah, I think it's as well as like, like with Dante, I always say like people, myself in general, I'm like, just meet him where he's at. Just
yeah,
meet him where he's at because at the end of the day, as a neurotypical person, that's what you want as well. I want you to meet me where I'm at. I don't want you to set the bar too high. I don't want you to set these expectations of what I'm going to do or be like, because that's just setting me up for failure. I just want you to stop moving the goalposts and just meet me where I'm at. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't have to make sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense to you, It's like the whole thing,
yeah. It's
you
not
know,
about you.
no, and you don't get to I say this all the time at school. You don't get to step on someone's foot and tell them they're not hurt.
Yep,
And it's the same principle. It's like you don't get to tell someone that their reaction is invalid or how they're feeling or what they need doesn't make sense. That is not for you to say.
yep,
It's that whole yeah, we need, and again, it's the neurodiverse community who are the best at that, at meeting people where they're at,
yep.
because it's learned and lived experience, right?
Yeah, yep. And we're also epic people pleasers. I'm just
Woo!
like, oh, that's, yeah, no worries.
Too
Like,
early to be read to filth on a Saturday morning.
it's just like, I'm always just like, I saw some meme the other day. It was something like, when I say, yeah, either way, no worries, and it's like I'm actually worrying both ways and a third way. I was like, yep, that's totally right. Like, oh, the amount of times my brain's like, no, this is not good. I'm just like, yep, all good,
the,
mate.
the phrase "no worries." There are worries. There are always worries.
That's already a trigger. I worry
Oh
about
man,
worries.
yeah. Am I worrying right? Am I worrying about? Have I prioritized my worries in the correct way?
Literally. It always pops in your head at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Just, oh, wow. Yep. Well, with that, what advice would you give somebody who suspects that they have some form of disability but they're not diagnosed yet?
I would say the village is dead. There's no village. The village has been burned down by by previous generations. In very entitled generations have burnt down the village. So I would just encourage people to find their own village, like really go about making genuine connections with people who can help you with like resources. The type of, like, even as simple as like do you have like I've recently learned about this body doubling thing, which is something that my husband needs, that like if he does a chore, he'll want me to just be there or like doing the
Okay.
chore with him. Find yourself a body double. Like just surround yourself with people who are good for you. Surround yourself with people that make you feel good. And especially in the case of people with neurodivergent children, you really need to build that village. You need to say, you know what? It's actually not about blood at all. It's not about family. It's about chosen family. With Dante, some of the most present people in his life are his two Uncle Wills. He's got two Uncle Wills, and they're both just like the amount of love and care and consideration they have for that child is just innumerable, immeasurable, and it just makes me so happy that, you know, he gets to grow up with that kind of positivity in his life. And I think you need to be really conscious of who you surround your neurodiverse children with. And quite often, the parents of neurodiverse children are some of the most helpful, kind people you'll ever meet, because we know the journey and we know it's really hard. And sometimes we know that you just want to give up and break down and be like, you know what, and say those words like, you know, hands on heart, I've said it once. I said to Dante, like, why can't you just be normal? You know, like we've been there. And I think when you have thoughts like that, that's where you need your village around you to say that it's okay. Like, it's okay that you've said that. It's okay that you felt that. But let's flip the script. Let's like cut out that nonsense, pick yourself up. This is what we're going to do.
Yep.
We're going to take him to see some trains. We're going to have a coffee and we're going to talk about these feelings. Yeah, find your people, and it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter how often you see them, but find your people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because yes, for so long it's been pushed that it, you know, family is blood, and yeah, okay, to some extent, but what like the definition of family, you know, that's I think what needs to kind of change is that, as you say, it doesn't have to be blood
No.
because most of our close family are not blood. It's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
friends, and yeah,
Yeah.
my friends have neurodivergent kids, and we kind of came together unintentionally. Like
Yeah.
it was just like we just
Yeah.
found each other, and now we've found each other. It all makes sense. So,
Yeah.
and we've all like slowly been diagnosed together, and you know, so
Yeah.
it's just that neurodivergent pipeline of just, you know,
Yeah.
hey, I really click with you. Now I
Yeah.
know why. So
Yeah.
it's yeah. So
There's nothing as beautiful as we had like Friendmas in December, and we had a bunch of people over, and just the relaxed nature of it all, of like, you know, having Dante there as the only kid and him just sort of being passed around to whoever he wanted, and everyone had eyes on him, everyone had eyes out for him, and I don't feel confident that if I took him to like a family event that would happen,
yeah.
you know? And so, like, feeling the safety net that he has with our chosen family is just something that's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's weird. Like you just talking about that, I was thinking about that situation with my son, and as soon as you said, you know, family, keep my like heart rate went up. I was getting a little panic attack. I'm just like, like, I mean, I love him and everything, but like, I
Yeah.
get what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
it's being equipped because
Yes.
you just know what you're doing. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. A thousand
so
percent.
yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, just a little cardiac arrest there. So with that, thank you so much for your time today
My
and having a chat.
pleasure. My
It's been
pleasure.
amazing, and yeah, I love just getting to know each and every person that I chat to because yeah, everybody is so amazing. You're amazing. Your son sounds amazing. Your little village sounds amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to thank you again for your time
My
today.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
I will chat to you again next time, hopefully.
Yeah.
Another
Sounds
time.
awesome. Sounds
Awesome.
awesome.
All right, take care.
See ya.